B is volume of a cylinder. Can you give me a just situation, something in your life that is cylindrical? Something, what? A soup can, right, is a cylinder. A water bottle is often a cylinder. So lots of cylinders in your world. We are going to find the volume of it. And the beautiful thing about it, if this is our cylinder, okay, let's say you have, this is the ugliest cylinder. Let's try again. Oh, too far. Okay, so if you have a radius here, the formula that you're going to use is exactly the same as the formula we did yesterday, right? Prisms and cylinders are the same formula. The only difference is our B is something very specific with a cylinder. What is B going to be in this problem? Not circumference, area of a circle, right? Which is what? Pi r squared times h, right? So it's the area of the circle is pi r squared, and then you're going to multiply by whatever your height is, okay? So it is exactly the formula we did yesterday. It's just that when you plug something in for B, it's now pi r squared, okay? Keeping in mind, because some of you on the quiz that I'm correcting right now, the 11.1 to 11.3 quiz, some of you did pi in problems where there were triangles or rectangles instead of circles. Remember, you will only use pi if there is a circle involved, okay? Make sure you're not throwing it in other places. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna give you a few cylinders and we're gonna find the volume of them, and then we have one other problem that's slightly different. We're gonna start with this cylinder. Let's say the height is 14 meters and we have a radius of 6 meters. Okay, you should be able to find the volume fairly quickly here of this cylinder. So if we're going to use the formula B times H, what is B in this problem? Pi 6 squared, or 36 pi. So pi times 6 squared. What is H? 14. Okay, so if we simplify that a little bit, 36 pi times 14. You're just plugging in 36 times 14. Don't worry about the pi initially. You get 504, and then attach your pi and its volume. So it's cubic meters. Okay, I would say 90% of the time, I'm going to ask you to leave it in terms of pi. The book often will ask you to do both, leave it in terms of pi and give me the nearest tenth or the nearest whole number. So just pay attention, God bless you, to what they're asking for there. Questions on that one? Okay, second one then. Looks like this. Really not drawing things to scale very well today, am I? So you have a cylinder, and again, we want the volume of it, which is BH. This one's slightly different. What's different about this one? You have a diameter instead of a radius, okay? Not a big difference, but enough that if you don't do something with it, you're gonna get a very wrong answer. So if my diameter is 2, what's my radius? My radius is 1. So we're gonna do pi r squared, or pi times 1 squared, and that's our B. What's H? 3. So you're doing pi times 1 squared, which would just be pi, times 3. So your volume is 3 pi cubic centimeters. Okay. That's pretty much the only two scenarios you'll see if you're finding the volume of a cylinder. Did they give you a radius or did they give you a diameter? Any questions on those two? Okay, we're not quite done. Example 3 is our last one. And this one is a little more involved. You're basically going to draw like a old school lunchbox. So it's going to have a prism on the bottom, a rectangular prism on bottom, and then on top it has half a cylinder. All right, so let's say our little lunchbox here has dimensions of 10 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches, and we want the volume. Okay, now if you think back to when we did like lateral area, surface area, when we had to find the surface area of something like this, it was a little bit different than just our surface area formulas, right? We had to make sure we didn't include the side that was the shared side of those two figures. With volume, that doesn't matter. With volume, you're just finding the volume of the two things because it's what's inside. It's not just the surface that you can see anymore, okay? So we're gonna find the volume of this figure by finding the volume of the prism, which is gonna be BH. And then what's our other figure? Half of a cylinder, okay? So make sure you're doing half a cylinder, not the volume of a full cylinder. Volume of a cylinder is BH, so we're gonna do 1/2 times BH, right? That'll give us half the cylinder. All right, let's start with the rectangular prism. What is our B for the prism? 60, right? You can use this rectangle as your base, which I feel like is what most people want to do. So that would be 10 times 6 for B. And then what's H? That's this other 6, right? That's the 6 that's vertical there. So you're doing 10 times 6 times 6, or 360 cubic inches. Okay, so that's the volume of the prism. Then you need half a cylinder. So really you're just finding the volume of the cylinder and you're cutting it in half. That's what this 1/2 out in front is doing for us. But we have to figure out what is the area of our base. Do you see it? Not 6. It's what? 5 isn't the radius. I see what you're doing there. You're cutting the 10 in half, right? 3 is the radius, right? So if this is 6 down here, that means this is 6, which would be a diameter, okay? So if we cut that in half, that means we're going to have a radius of 3 inches, okay? So that's our radius. So if we're doing the area of the base, what's the area of that circle? Pi times, what'd you say? 3 squared times pi, right? So it's pi times the radius squared would be our B. And then what's H? It's the 10. It's the distance between the two circles is our H, right? This is your H. So you're doing, don't forget that 1/2 out in front, 1/2 times pi times 3 squared times 10. If you simplify that, 1/2 times 9 times 10 is 45. And then you can attach your pi, cubic inches. So that's the volume of the half cylinder. Okay. Now it depends what they ask you for. If they said, give me the volume in exact answer or in terms of pi, you would say your volume is 360 plus 45 pi cubic inches, right? You can't combine those because they're not both pi numbers. So you would just leave it like that as an exact answer, or if they said round it, you would just plug that in. 360 plus 45 pi to the nearest whole number would be about 501 cubic inches. So just pay attention to what they're asking for. This would be nearest whole number. This would be in terms of pi. Okay. Any questions on that setup?